My name is Patty Fitzwalter. My husband and I lost our son over 5 years ago to an accidental heroin overdose. Michael suffered from severe anxiety and was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar disorder. So he had a very difficult childhood. Well, his childhood actually was normal. He was a sweet, loving, very intelligent, big heart little boy, but his troubles began in middle school. And so we sought help, we sought counseling, and that's where the diagnosis came into play. So, long story short, Michael began to self-medicate, first with marijuana when he was 16 years old. We tried so hard to get through to him and talk to him and get him to open up to us and tell us what's going on with you, why, and he wouldn't. Then it wasn't until he was 18 when we found out that he suffered from such severe anxiety. He got some benzodiazepines from a friend of his, Xanax, and he began to abuse that drug. So we discussed with him the dangers of prescription drug abuse, not really, I think, fully understanding ourselves at the time the real danger we were looking at. He said he understood he wouldn't do it again. The next thing we know, things start missing, money, jewelry. I had a prescription for nausea. I was going through breast cancer at this time, and they gave me a prescription to help with nausea from chemotherapy. I didn't think to ask, what is this drug? Is it dangerous? Should I lock it up? I thought, well, it's just a medication for nausea, and I put it in the medicine cabinet and forgot about it. So next thing we know, that prescription turns up missing. Turns out it was a powerful benzodiazepine called Ativan. We weren't aware of the dangers of that drug. I didn't even know what it was. His grandmother had a prescription for opioids for rheumatoid arthritis, and those turned up missing. So next thing we know, we get a phone call from the police. He had been in an accident, and we found out he'd been doing heroin. So that was the first time we were thrown into this whole world of heroin and drug abuse. We didn't understand until this point how desperate the situation was. We didn't know that there was a heroin epidemic in our midst. It wasn't in the media. We didn't understand at the time that prescription drug abuse was an epidemic amongst young people. We didn't know that kids were going to pharma parties where they would steal medications from their parents' medicine cabinets and throw them in a bowl and have a free-for-all. We didn't know any of this. And we were completely blind going into this. So looking back, of course, if we had known then everything we know now, things may have been very different for us. So what Ellis and I are all about is education and awareness. It's extremely important, I think, that we get into the schools very, very early, starting with first grade, kindergarten even, and teaching them about You know, I mean, the conversation's, of course, going to be different with a kindergartner than a high schooler. But we need to get in this to the schools, and we need to teach these kids about these drugs and make them understand how dangerous they are. And every single year, a couple of times every single year, you know, have somebody go in there and teach them. And also we need to address the mental health issues. It's all connected. Drug abuse, mental health, suicide, violence, it's all connected. And so we need to address the mental health issues by teaching our kids from very early on coping skills for anxiety. Many kids, especially these days, go through so much trauma, and we need to get in there and help them, and I think we can do it through the school system.
Patty pretty much said it all, but I would like to say that what we do, she said we're all about spreading awareness. Well, H.E.A.L stands for Heroin Education and Awareness League. We've got to try to head it off at the pass. Education and prevention is the only way out of this. We're not going to coin a phrase, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. But what we do have to ensure with the lawsuits and that going against the pharma companies and that is that all the funding, any monies that's received, goes into getting treatment out there for the people that are already suffering the disease, reputable treatment. Get information out about this. When we were going through our son's active addiction, you know, it was like we just went on the internet and pick any, you know, we had no way to validate if we were picking a good place or not. The treatment centers need to be available to where they can get in right then and there, regardless of your insurance or not insured or, you know, whatever the case may be. And they need to be in inpatient treatment and longer term in many cases than what they are. And to kind of piggyback on what Callan said about the one person, if we can get to one person at a time, all of our efforts and money spent for it is well worth the time and effort to do it. And then we do have to put money into preventing, you know, educating. Somehow we got to get the public out there. We do so many town halls and stuff like that where 2, 3, 4, 5 people show up. Somehow we got to get the people to pull their head out of the sand, come and educate, and maybe they can prevent something before it happens. Be proactive instead of reactive. It just, you know, unfortunately, when we were going through, you know, our journey in the early parts of it, none of this was out there. I mean, we hadn't heard the word heroin since the 60s or 70s. And the only thing we knew about it is you had to use a needle to do it. Well, that's not the case anymore. We got to get to these kids young, get to them often, try to prevent them even from going down that road. And for those that are out there already suffering, we got to get them the treatment they need.